It may be little known that the Soviet freestyle wrestler, six-time champion of the Russian Soviet Republic, as well as a once popular wrestler in Japan, Victor Zangief, who was famous for his unorthodox and spectacular techniques, became the prototype of the character named Red Cyclone from the Japanese game Street Fighter. The character of the super fighter Bushido is immortalized in the popular media around the world. But compatriots do not know Victor Zangief very well. The native of Khabarovsk, Victor Zangief was born on May 26, 1962 in the family of coach of the Soviet Union Gentemir Zangief, in many respects thanks to his father. Following his advice and suggestions, Victor has chosen a career as a freestyle wrestler. And under the guidance of another honored coach of the Soviet Union, Aslan Bekjov, his natural talent and desire for victory rather quickly led the young man both to significant results and to the title of Master of Sports International Class of the Soviet Union in freestyle wrestling. Thanks to his father and an experienced mentor, in 1981 Victor Zangief managed to win his first significant victory, winning the World Junior Championship in Vancouver. After becoming world champion, Victor Zangief continued to train hard and already the next year became the owner of the European Youth Championship belt. And from 1980 to 1988 he became overall 6 times champion of the Russian Soviet Republic in freestyle wrestling. Planning to finish his professional wrestling career at the end of the 80s and planning to become a freestyle wrestling coach, Zangief got a sudden offer, and Victor decided not to put away yet his wrestling shoes on the top shelf of the cupboard and went to conquer Japan in a new sport, wrestling. When asked how did Zangief got to Japan, the athlete once answered, "Everything happened spontaneously. We were invited to Japan. There was tremendous interest in the closed Soviet Union, and, accordingly, in Soviet wrestlers. For the first time we were presented to the public in the hall for almost 65,000 people. The Japanese were mostly interested in guys who were going to finish their careers in big sports, but were still in good shape. 30 people from all over the country were chosen. I ended up in the top 3. I liked the terms of the contract. About $5 million for 2 or 3 years in a sport like Bushido." Performing in pro wrestling tournaments in Japan, he quickly became a crowd favorite and one of the most memorable wrestlers. His first fight was a spectacular one, but he was unable to defeat Eji Unja.
Ну что, Виктор уйдет, пока уходит от этого захвата. Сейчас главное не пустить контратаку. Похоже, пускает, похоже, да.
In spite of the defeat in the very beginning, the master of international class and pupil of the Soviet School of Martial Arts managed to make a lasting impression on the Japanese audience. Everybody was enthusiastically watching his moves, the existence of which they had not even guessed. Many were amazed by his incredible flexibility, lightning-fast reaction and technique, allowing him to take a favorable position in the parterre. He easily evaded grapples, and when the body was in the lock and the rival was ready to make a painful hold, the Russian wrestler was on the bridge, beginning to move his legs and make turns. He became like a spider that caught its prey. Having twisted his opponent, he quickly rose to his feet to the applause of the audience. Zangief demonstrated a high level of skill, and the audience wanted to see him in action against Albright or Takada. But it is not so easy to achieve success in Bushido, because one must master several techniques, including striking. Victor Zangief's fights have always been interesting for fans of the sport. Despite the fact that he always was among the mediocre fighters, even the best athletes were thoroughly preparing for the fight with him. Each appearance on the ring was spectacular, and the intrigue was kept until the last moment. After that, in 1991, the wildly popular video game Street Fighter was released, in which Victor became the prototype of the character Zangief, also known as Red Cyclone. The first fighting game character in the history of the fighting game genre whose fighting technique was built around throws and grapples. Bushido brought popularity. Somehow on the wave of fame I got an offer from Capcom to be one of the characters in any game. Everyone in Street Fighter has real-life prototypes. Capcom representatives monitored who was more popular with these characters and released the game. I signed the contract, not really going into the nuances, said the athlete. In addition, the character of Zangief appears in the cartoon Ralph, released in 2012, and in the second part of Ralph Against the Internet, as well as in the movie Street Fighter with Van Damme. Despite the fame of the game's hero, Victor Zangief himself says that he is not the least bit jealous of his virtual character's fame. After leaving the arena, Victor Zangief decided to be engaged in the younger generation and to pass his great experience to future champions. Now the athlete lives in Moscow and trains young freestyle wrestlers.